Pretty soon. I have a hair appointment. Okay.
I know you do. Quickly, I didn't really know whether I was gonna, because I'm in Berlin, and that's a whole other story, and maybe we can cover that if somebody else shows up today. But Paul is here, and we were starting to talk a little bit about the things that have changed energetically. And I had mentioned ancestral karmic releases that we all agree, that those of us that are empathic enough to be aware of such sensations, that Paul recognized it too. And then she went on to say that that was the majority of her work. So we have a limited amount of time with her. And I would really like you to talk about that again, because it's important for people to understand the concept of ancestral karma. And the way that you just described it was perfect. So I will shut up now and we'll take advantage of your time before you have to go.
Okay, well, thank you, Lowell. So me and Lowell were talking about the fourth dimension and the work that's done there to help heal. I call it the spirit world. And many of the readings, I would say most of the readings that I do, for example, let's say a girl comes to me and she's coming to me with wanting to connect for healing purposes, etc. Many times it'll be, for example, a grandmother who's passed to the spirit world comes in and says, I take responsibility for the relationship you have with your father, because I know your father's relationship, you and your father don't get along, and it's for XY reasons. Let's say he's cold and not responsive to love. And then the grandmother will come in and talk about, well, when I was growing up, my father abandoned me at a very young age, and I didn't know how to connect to my son because of that. So and these are most of the readings that I do. It's coming in for, I acknowledge, I apologize, I take responsibility. There's bigger things at play generationally. And then the granddaughter can come in and say, okay, now I understand. This makes sense. And then the healing can begin, not only for the people in the spirit world in the fourth dimension, where they need to heal because they see things differently now, but then also it heals our third dimensional world. It heals both worlds at the same time. And I was telling Lowell, when I read Diane Robbins, when it said in there, I don't know if it was Adama or Mikos, I think it was Mikos talking about the fourth dimensional world is where our loved ones go to pass, and it feels like they do healing of their own there. And so that they're not ready for the fifth dimension yet, because they're still broken themselves. They still have to learn. I feel the learning is accelerated on that fourth dimension because they don't have so much density and resistance to the learning. Mm-hmm. It's faster, but it isn't the fifth dimension. You're still working out karma.
Yeah, well, I understand. We continue these cycles until we perfect a lesson that we came here to learn. So if we didn't get it, we're bound to return to finish it. And when you were talking about it, that's what went into my head, that was an indication of grandma. She didn't get the lesson done. And so she returned to clean that up. And look at what benefit it was going to have for the generations in front of her.
That's exactly it too. I forgot to mention that. I'm glad you brought that up, Lowell, because that heals the granddaughter when she has children. So it's healing backward and forward. Within the third dimension, it heals the backward generation and it heals the forward generation. And I feel like that's our responsibility at this time frame. We're the backward and forward healers on both sides of the table. And then mediumship can help that. But I'm going to tell you that has been in the past, mediumship was for the purpose of proving life after death. We're not in that game anymore. People are pretty much on board. Now it's healing through mediumship. That's the most important thing, is the healing portion of it. So absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad you made that distinction for people so that they understand. I think we can need to spend a little more time, not today necessarily, but maybe illuminating the whole idea of the fourth dimension, what it is. And so, even I, ignorant to it, a while ago, had ruled out the idea that you can't go from 3 to 5. You got to pass through 4. And yes, there's still some sense to that, because yes, your karma gets cleared there. And really, between incarnations, here's where we return for our next soul contract. Once we've successfully mastered that, we can either choose new lessons or we ascend. Now we're to the point on our planet in this cosmic cycle. We're going to be limited to those experiences because third density is going to be eliminated soon. The shift, that's what all of this represents. And when that vibration rises, it no longer supports that density. That's what I think it's going to be important for people to understand when they hear us talk about what needs to be done for us to be able to ascend and what readiness you have to have. Here's when we talk about find your alignment, get your vibration high. Those are the tools that are going to get you to the space where you can understand that now. In this density, you have an awareness of that. You don't have to wait until you're going to reincarnate and go back and, oh yeah, now I remember the astral plane and what we do here. But that's just a byway. We're going to skip to the 5th dimension, and that's clearer to me now than it ever has been. But it's time for us to do that. And everything that I'm witnessing going on in the world just continues to point to the preparation for this to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, because there are so many mediums that are developing, and it's just out of the blue. It's like, oh, I have to develop my mediumship. Well, that doesn't happen for no reason. It's because there's going to be people, it's going to be that opportunity for healing, that process of healing, that the connecting with the 4th dimension and the 3rd dimension. And what do you think of the book by Diane Robbins that says that the 4th dimension, as we know it for the spirit world, is going to be disassembled because it was created as a waypoint between the 3rd and the 5th?
I'm going to have to sit with that for a while because to a degree, it makes sense.
I don't know.
It's my understanding that up to the 9th dimension, those realms are all represented within our earth plane here. So I don't know. Does 4th density, eliminate? I don't know, but I'm going to give it some thought. Diane, it was funny you mentioned her. After reading her books today, I was just compelled to reach out to her and just kind of tell her what's been going on. So I sent her this at 10 to the hour. You should know I'm in Berlin to work on a TV series that has inner earth as an important feature. I've been rereading your books as well as Aurelius for all the insight I can pull together. Thank you for everything you do. Perhaps when I get to Shasta in July, we can spend some time together. Well, 2 minutes ago, she responded. How exciting to hear this. Thank you for rereading my books. They were dictated to me word for word, and I never changed a word. I am on standby for my ascension and may not be here in July, which I had that sense. I was told any day now. Please let my son Jason know about the TV series so he can send it out to my subscribers. He manages my website. I am grateful for your friendship. Sending you love, Diane. Wow. I knew that when I saw her last summer, I got there about a month after she had come out of hospice care. She had to be moved from her home because she had been affected by COVID and couldn't care for herself. And she had that kind of care for 6 months. Now, Diane, is in her early 80s as it is. And I don't want to say frail, but her fragility is beginning to just manifest. And even she said then that she believes that her work has been done here, that what she was sent here to do is completed, and she's ready to move on because she's headed for Telos. Now, after reading her books, I'm 100% sure that that's actually going to take place.
I'm so excited for her. And
So am I.
sorry for our loss, but you know, I feel like we're right behind her.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
After reading her books again, it's this phenomenon has happened before, and it makes me wonder again. There were a couple interviews I'd had when the focus of the questioning was about disappearances in Mount Shasta. Well, that really wasn't what I wanted to address. But when I was asked the question about people that might have disappeared, I certainly know my ability to go to other realms. And you've heard me talk about how wonderful it is there and how difficult it is sometimes to return. I wonder how many of those people that may have disappeared just decided they got where they were going to go and they weren't going to come back.
And you know, before I even knew about Telos, I had a strong sense that some civilizations, not everybody within a civilization had probably gotten to the level, but a certain number of people within a civilization, you know, when they say, oh, this was thriving and they were doing these extraordinary things and then they disappeared. You know, what if a chunk of the population, the one with the people with the highest vibration were invited in, and then because it said, well, but the ancestors are still here, maybe the ones with the lower vibration that weren't ready to go just disperse then and back into the regular populace, you know what I mean? And I had that intuitive feeling several years ago, especially with Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. Kind of did that, and they did some extraordinary things with their building and with the solstices and even the moon, and then they disappeared. So yeah, I feel like there's something mystical about certain civilizations. When they're ready to go in, they probably have a place ready for them. But
there are portals everywhere, and
I
we
think
need to
there's portals
remind
in Texas where I'm at.
I mean, there's portals everywhere. They just need to be reactivated.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Oh gosh, I'd love to.
I know you gotta go. And thanks for showing up. This was important. So if this is the extent of what we get to do today, this information was important for people to hear. So thank you, honey.
And I'm so excited to hear more about what's going on in Berlin. Oh, then your conversation can continue. Blessings.
Right.
Have fun. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, oh my goodness, Michaela's showing up. There you are. Can you hear me? I see you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Do you want to try and reconnect? Mhm. Now I hear you. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Good. It's good to see you.
Yes, I'm so happy too. I'm happy that I made it.
I am too. Well, Paula was here and we just finished. In fact,
Oh,
well, she had an appointment and she couldn't miss, but she popped in to just, see. She wasn't sure because I was traveling whether this was going to happen.
yes,
But in truth,
yes.
it's 6 o'clock in Berlin. And so to satisfy 11
Yes.
o'clock where I used to be, this works perfectly.
Yes, I knew, but I didn't make it to 6. So I was hoping that you are still in the call. Yes.
I'm here. So if you have something you want to share with us, I would love to hear it.
Ooh, to be honest, I just wanted to meet you with you and be in the circle, but
Well, the circle's kind of it's closed today.
Yes. Doesn't matter. Yes.
That's true.
How do you feel?
I was telling
in Europe,
Paula,
I was wondering.
It's I love it. I want to spend some more time outside, but the first couple of days I've been here, I knew I sensed I'd be a little jet lagged, but I didn't know to what degree. Really, over the last couple of days, I got back to my room and that's what I did. Yesterday it rained, so I wasn't really going to get out and march around too much and try and familiarize myself. Although I had a couple of days where it won't be until tomorrow evening I'll see part of the team again, and we'll start to review characters and what's to come in the series. But I have a little bit of time when this is finished, and the sun doesn't go down until almost 10 o'clock so far. Oh my God, last light, it's 10 o'clock at night. This is amazing for me. I'm getting used to the German culture a little bit at a time, and they're maybe not as outgoing as others, but they're not rude. There's just a different kind of mentality about the Germans, and it's okay because I'm half German myself, but I get it.
Yes, I understand. I was wondering, when you enter some other country, I personally often feel it that the whole field is changing, even when I'm flying in a plane and I'm reaching some country, it is already palpable that there are some differences in the energy field. So I was wondering.
It's really wild that you said that. I was rereading a lot of the Telos books, Diane Robbins' books, Aurelia's books. I read the Agartha book all in the last 10 days. It was I just felt like I needed to cram all this information again to see it from that perspective. And what you touched on was one of the things that kind of came out of all of it.
Yes. Yes, it is always very interesting, when you cross borders to some country or some other land. I'm sure there are beings, there are many layers of things that you can feel, and also the mental field, or how to call it, morphogenetical field. I don't know how it's called. Yeah. I often do it, especially in the capital cities, where many people are thinking about various things. I just get there and open myself to some sort of meditation and feel what kind of inspirations are in that field, Sometimes it's very interesting.
There was something in the books I was reading yesterday, especially the Agartha book. It was talking about the food that they eat and their vegetarian nature. And one of the visitors that was there in Agartha that was talking to whoever was guiding him around was asking about, how the food was, where it came from, and where we get food that comes from other countries. Yeah. The person that was guiding him through this particular visit told him that everything that they used was grown locally, because they didn't understand what vibration they might be getting from something that was grown elsewhere. And they didn't want to import energies that weren't consistent with the energies that they had. Now, I never looked at things from that standpoint, but I certainly understand it and appreciate it, because even when we're in environments, our empathic nature you can't ignore when vibrations change. And especially, I would imagine, when you ingest something like that, now you've taken that energy in. So, man,
Yes, I
other
think I've
things to
heard
be
about it.
aware of.
Also from the point of nutrition, our bodies are accustomed to some environment, and then we are ingesting something that is completely different. And also the energies, yes, and also the travel of the food, it also gives some layers of things to the product. So
Yeah. The sense of, actually really farm table with very little time in between the time it comes out of the ground. I understand the purity of that whole process. We don't know where stuff comes from anymore. Even when I lived in California, and fortunately, we could grow anything we wanted. Really, I'll say this quickly. While I was in the business and I was running a hotel, I had a chef who could get everything that we needed. And I mean everything within a 50-mile radius. And it was fresh. You can't do that anywhere else. When you go into grocery stores and you start to see, bananas that came from Chile and, plums that came from Mexico. And, well, I guess this time of year, that's the only place they can come from. But now that I remember, what kind of energy were they growing under, and what is the fruit carrying?
Yes. Years ago, when we moved to the countryside and we started to plant our own vegetables and things, I've been reading those books about that Russian lady. She's called Anastasia. I don't know if you heard about it. It's very interesting, and she describes like how soil is communicating with us, when you can go to the garden and you can just walk with your bare foot on the ground, and the soil is getting the information about your health state and everything, and it accommodates the fruit and vegetable to your needs. So it is a whole another dimension of eating and growing food. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and it's also interesting from this book. That lady, it is said to be a true story, and I kind of believe it, because she's said to live in the taiga in Siberia, and she she lives like totally with the nature. She lives with animals, and she really doesn't have the kind of houses that like we have. And she was telling the story about our ancestors, that they were not used to eat so much food and so much dense food as we are eating now. Yeah, and we could call it that they were pranic, and they were just going around the forest and picking some berries just for the taste, just for the fun. And they really didn't need as much as we do, or as much as we think that we need, because recently,
over time,
there is much to
there is, and I want you to go back to that. But that was, I like to characterize it that the universe prodded me to crave different things. When I started eating differently, that's when my body got back in the shape that it was in. And it wasn't by any intent that I had. It wasn't that I wanted to be healthier and I wanted to exercise more. None of those things came into play. Somehow the cravings I had weren't satisfied by eating steak and meat and the types of things that I grew up was used to eating. I was interested in less and eating smaller portions, but more often. And man, that's the way I've lived my life. So really, if you ask me, typically I'll have a modest breakfast in the morning, get me started. That'll last me until like mid-afternoon, and that's when I'll have my next meal. That'll be the last meal I need for the day, but it won't be that I won't have, maybe some trail mix and some fruit and some things along the way that just kind of satisfies you. It really depends on the weather. When it's hot outside, I love watermelon. When it's warm outside or it's cold outside, yeah, I love a little soup. But it just seems like I'm not in that grind that I was in before. And wow, the results speak for themselves. I feel better than I've ever felt. And I'm a lot older than I, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, I feel when we adjust our nutrition like this, the one of the most important things for me are the mental clarity, because your digestion is not as heavy, and so the brain is functioning much better. Yeah.
That's a good point to make.
Yeah, and it is for me, at least, as I'm a creative person, it is very important to have clear mind, So yeah. And that the thing that I was telling, it was about, I think I already mentioned those two people, but it is the couple, Czechoslovakian, and they are breatharians. They are living on prana. And they were explaining how they transitioned to this. And it is really, as they say, it is really much about the thinking, that we are used to expect hunger and things like that. And they just made their transition, and they say that now they do not need to eat. They just eat for the taste and for the sensation,
Mm-hmm.
And they
enjoy it.
Yes. And they pick only the very best things on the top of everything. It is really, it is royal, You just pick only what is for your enjoyment. You do not have any obligation. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have anything else you want to share?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, no, I just wanted to connect.
I'm glad that you did. When I came here, I went, well, there are some other people that are in Europe. Maybe there's a way we can get together. Well, no, Slovakia is really not that close to Berlin. So we'll figure out another way to do this. I have a sense, though, that I'm going to be returning to Berlin for as long as it takes to get this project done. But I can tell you that this isn't a months and months type of project. All of us that are involved in what we're about to do, we understand that in our minds, we need to get the pilot wrapped in 90 days. So we're not messing around here.
Yes, that's what I felt. I was immediately triggered when you told us that you are in Berlin. It is not close, but it is close, kind of.
It's Europe.
Yeah.
Well, when I was having dinner with two of the gals the night before last, they were talking about the differences because, they've been to the States. And Europe is like, it's not quite, in my mind, and I could be wrong, maybe it's not as big as the United States, but there are lots of different countries with lots of different cultures and change. America has 50 states, and we have modest differences in culture, but it's not what Europe is.
Yes, there is a much, I wouldn't say much longer history, but yeah, there is more diversity in the culture and things to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to move across borders in the United States. I had to pass through a couple borders here, and getting out of Oslo was TSA. For whatever reason, and this doesn't matter to anybody, and I don't know that it bears repeating, but I will say this for you travelers that wonder about TSA. I needed to balance the weight of the luggage I was checking and the luggage I was carrying. So I ended up taking my shaving kit out of my suitcase and putting it in my bag, not thinking that any containers that were in there that had any kind of fluid in them were going to be problematic. Never mind that it's toothpaste, shaving cream, and face wash. It didn't matter. According to this TSA agent, if it was over the amount of ounces it was supposed to hold, sorry, I can't let you through. Well, it took me a couple of days to find a store where I could get toothpaste and shaving cream again. So I'm gonna go back to shaving every often day, but it just you learn all over again what you can carry onto a plane, what you can store in a plane. But it was wonderful. I only saw Norway as I was passing through the airport, but Oslo was beautiful and the people there were lovely. We'll see. If I was going to spend time in Scandinavia, there's areas in Sweden where I have ancestors, and that's I'd like to get familiar with that. But the same is true of Germany. When I went back to Ancestry, because I'd plotted a lot of my ancestors on the Scandinavian side back to 1765 in Sweden. I hadn't done the same thing on my maternal side that was from Germany. So what I do know is that my birth mother's father, his father was from Bavaria. And, any more specific than that, I'm not sure yet, but I'd like to learn more. I don't know if I didn't see, there just seemed to be a lot more response for those types of records coming out of like Sweden, as opposed to Germany, because I had a full battery of things that came when I started to research my family tree, going down to Sweden, but I don't get as many of those same triggers when I'm trying to research things that happened in Germany so long ago. But we'll see what I come up with. I'm just curious. I won't be spending that much time on the planet much anymore anyway, in this density, to worry about any of that.
Yes, I also have some places in Scandinavia and also in Germany that are kind of calling me, but those are more like power places or shamanic places, like the Gotland Island in the Sweden. It has a very long shamanic history, and there are very interesting stone circles, but they are not always circles. They sometimes are in the shape of a ship, and they are very powerful. And there are also the big boulders of stones with the, how do you call it? When you cut with the sword, you make I don't know the word, but there are some kind of very peculiar stones that are also very from the Druidic point of view, interesting.
I'm not surprised at all. To me, Europe speaks to nothing but elemental, your land to begin with. So if you can tap into that dimension, all the elementals, they'll make themselves available to you. Believe me, they're all on high alert now with what's going on Earth, and they're here to assist in whatever way they're supposed to assist Gaia. They draw their energy from her. They're here to support that. When she wins, we win. They get it. I would love to have the time to go, for a few months and just trek through those energetic areas of Europe. I wish I had the time to do that. Maybe that'll be in the next life when I come back, but we'll see.
It is such a powerful, when you are drawn to some place and you feel like you are very connected physically, energetically, even maybe through ancestors, because in my experience, I do not, it doesn't work for me in every country. Like when I was in Bosnia in the famous pyramids, it didn't speak to me at all. Like I was in the forest, I was in the beautiful riverside, and it is nothing to compare, for example, with Czech Republic or Britain or other places that really work with me, So when you go out into the woods, you will feel it, whether it is the place that calls you or not.
Yeah, that's quite true. That's true for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but I agree with you. That's where I find my connection to higher things. It's best when there's no one else around and I find peace and solace. And it's just not that. What you get to hear and experience when you find that zone, when there's nothing else to disturb it, man, the universe just opens up, and then it starts to feed you downloads. Gives you a little bit at a time, So you get that first, let that sink in and take hold, and then we're going to feed you a little bit more. And the little bit more that I'm talking about is magic. What it shows you next, there's no coincidences. It's just to prepare us for where we're going next.
Yes, and it is so pure, you know, the nature, what she gives us is always so pure. We just need to be quiet and really give it that time and space. And she really, she can create such a shamanic experience for us only if we listen and only if we just open up.
Yeah, I've got a whole refreshed aspect, and again, this wasn't clearly any coincidence either. None of these books I was drawn to read again because it was for me. I'm being prepared again to just have that archive of information ready. And there was a lot of stuff in there that had helped me connect dots again. To the things that I already knew, there was just verification of it in books that had been written a decade ago or more. Yeah, they were talking about the changes that were coming. Their interactions with those beings from those places all indicated that this is all moving in this direction. And I shouldn't be surprised that energetically we're beginning to feel it on the surface now, because this cosmic cycle is nearly complete and Earth is about to move into her next stage of evolution, and we get to go with her.
Yes, I'm looking forward.
Me too. So I'm going to end here because I'm going to go find some currywurst.
Okay, enjoy.
And I'll post this later, but I think the next thing I'm just compelled to talk about and cover is inner Earth. So after going through the books, I'll figure out a day to do that. Maybe it'll just be next week's podcast and we'll cover that material then. I'll have to see what the schedule is here, but it's like there's more that just was revealed to me that, oh my God, it's more the foundation of people that they're going to need to understand. And if we're going to prepare for them a TV series that may seem fantasy, and we're going to teach you that it's not, then maybe putting these seeds of information out there and a little wisdom and knowledge before would just help. Oh yeah, I've heard that somewhere before. We get to help shape the narration in a way that isn't going to frighten anybody. The Earth is going to go through some catastrophic things, absolutely positively, but it doesn't affect our soul and what is going to take place here. So that'll be next.
Yes, I really feel like it is so important to tell these things to people, and also it is so important how we tell it, because it is really 50% of the success.
Well, part of it, I was reminded this week when I had read something about light workers, and I'm certainly aware that, they're showing up. I neglected to remember that just like me, there are a bunch of them that still have not awoken yet. And their time is going to come when they hear a trigger like the rest of us did. So the fact that they're light workers that are just, they haven't been activated yet, all of that, as you know, as I know, has been accelerating, and people are waking up to things that there's an energy I don't understand. Can someone help me with it? And I hear more and more of that. I know what this is about and what's coming. So, we are the ones that are here and got into it early enough so we can begin to not necessarily shape anybody else's journey, but help them understand what the world is going through and what this energetic change is all about, so that they can take their part of it and contribute their gift to whatever this transition is going to be. But I just see more light workers that have been walking around, I don't want to say asleep, just dormant, shall we say, waiting for whatever this was that was going to trigger them so that they could get to work as well.
Yes, and, I feel the more honest and authentic we are, the more likely it is that we create that trigger.
True. True. All right. Well, I'm going to say Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for showing up, and I'll see you again soon. Okay.
Yeah, looking forward. Bye.
Okay.